A 506.
So, hello everyone, welcome to our bi-weekly series. First of all, We Can Read, presented to you by the Springfield chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated and the Lee B. Revels Educational Foundation. Through this program, we want to encourage our young readers to read and to continue on with our legacy of leadership in the Western Massachusetts community. My name is Kareem Newland. I am currently the vice president of our chapter, and today we will be reading Dave the Potter, Artist, Poet, and Slave. We're also joined by a couple of friends who are going to talk a little bit about what they're doing and how it relates to Dave the Potter. So first, I will introduce Miss C.
Hi, I'm Erica Cajanel. I'm the owner of Nutmeg Empire Ceramics, and I'm a ceramic artist and teaching artist, which means I split half my time making art and half my time teaching art, and I focus on ceramics. So we're here at Suffield Academy today with two of my amazing students that are going to show off their love for ceramics.
Hi, I'm Adriana. I'm a four-year senior from Boston, Mass. And I'm a senior, so I'm going to be going to Virginia State University next year to play D2 lacrosse. And I'm also going to be majoring in psychology.
Hi, I'm Christian Racinos. I'm from Newburgh, New York. I've been doing ceramics for 2 years now. I started my sophomore year. I'm a triplet, and outside of ceramics, my main sport is usually crew. So, yeah.
Cool. Miss C, do you want to show us around your studio?
Sure. So we're here in the throwing section of our studio. Behind me is our greenhouse where we have work in process. I brought out a piece today to show you. Dave the Potter made huge ceramics. He was amazingly talented, and this was probably one of the biggest pieces I have thrown, and still this would be like an average Dave the Potter size. So I wanted to just talk about how impressive his work is, but also how impressive the work we make here in the studio is. So follow me. This is the ceramics throwing space. And then over here, we have our hand building areas. This is where my students make work with the slab roller, the extruder. We mix our own glaze chemicals in the back, and all these shelves, well, we're in May, so that means there's not a flat space in the studio that doesn't have some sort of beautiful work on it. Over here is where we stage a lot of our work. Often you'll see this table full of students working, but right now, because our kilns have been running so much at the end of the season, they're full of work coming and going from our processes. In here, we have our kiln room. My seniors, so Adriana is going to put her handprint on the wall pretty soon. And then these kilns are cooking almost continuously in May. This kiln just finished a bisque kiln, which is our first firing. And this kiln just finished a glaze firing, so you can see those awesome colors that come out from our glazes. So now we're going to return to our students, and they're going to show you a demonstration of throwing on the potter's wheel.
Cool. Let's head back over.
All right, guys. So the first step in throwing is after the clay is on the potter's wheel and spinning, the student artists are making sure they have plenty of water on their hands, and they have to center the clay. Centering clay means that it is in the middle of the spinning potter's wheel, and it's a symmetrical object. So clay comes out of the ground and is dug up. This clay comes from Sheffield, Massachusetts, at a place called Sheffield Pottery. And the reason the pottery was started there is because there was a natural vein of clay in the landscape. So if you ever are in Sheffield, there's a big red barn that says Sheffield Pottery, and out back is literally the pit where they dig it from the ground, they clean it, and they make it nice and smooth so our potters can use it. So Adriana is just about there in her clay. It's nice and even, it's nice and symmetrical, and even though it's spinning, it doesn't look like it's moving. That's perfect. Christian is doing a great job too. He's using the side of his hand to press firmly down. The clay is soft, so it moves and it shifts, and it will match whatever shape Christian's hands form. And again, you can see how that is really beautifully on center, right on the top.
So while they're doing that, I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit about Dave the Potter, artist, poet, slave, written by Laban Hill and illustrated by Brian Collier. He was a person that drew the pictures, the pretty pictures that you see. Dave the Potter, artist, poet, slave. To us, it's just dirt, the ground we walk on. Scoop up a handful, the gritty grain slip between your fingers. On wet days, heavy with rainwater, it is cold and squishy, mud pie heaven, but today it was clay, the plain and basic stuff upon which he learns to form a life as a slave nearly 200 years ago. To us, it's just a pot, round and tall, good for keeping marbles on fresh cut flowers. But to Dave, it was a pot large enough to store a season's grain harvest, to put up salted meat, to hold memories. Each one began out of the clouds of the dust, clouded clumps of clay, ground in the pug mill, and carried wheelbarrow after wheelbarrow to Dave's spinning potter's wheel. With a flat wooden paddle large enough to row across the Atlantic, Dave mixed clay with water drawn from Big Horse Creek until wet and stiff and heavy. He threw the clay, sometimes 60 pounds at once, and nobody knew how or where it would land except for Dave. Dave kicked his potter's wheel until it spun as fast as a carnival's wheel of fortune. You see Dave? He's making big pots. Look at Dave's hands. That's exactly what Christian and Adriana were doing. Like a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat, Dave's hands, buried in the mound mud, pulled out the shape of a jar. This is a beautiful book. His chapped thumbs pinched into the center, squeezed the inside against his fingers and outside. As the wheel spun round and round, The walls of the jar rose up like a robin's puffed breast, but only so far before its immense weight threatened to collapse. Look at how big that is. Kind of like what Miss C was doing, showing us. The jar grew so large, Dave could no longer wrap his strong arms around it. If he climbed into the jar and curled up into a ball, he would have been embraced. Only then did he stop his potter's wheel and roll long ropes of clay between his dry, caked palms. Dave mounted these coils of clay one by one on half-finished jars. He ran his wet fingers along the sides to smooth it all together, kicking the wheel with the heel of his foot. But today we have machines that spin the wheel. The shoulder and rim shrugged upward as the jar took the shape Dave knew was there, even before he worked, the raw mound on his wheel. While the clay dried, Dave pounded wood, ash, and sand to mix a glass-like brown glaze to withstand time. But before the jar completely hardened, Dave picked up a stick and wrote to let us know that he was here. Says, I wonder where is all my friendship to all and every nation. So see him writing his poetry on the side of the jars. In the end. So it says here that Dave is an important American artist. His beautifully crafted jars stand out among pottery of the time. His whimsical poems embody a simplicity and deep emotion complexity that rivals Japanese haiku. These are remarkable accomplishments themselves, but for Dave, who lived most of his life as a slave, they are even more incredible. We have printed poems here as they appeared on pots, including mistakes as well as various marks such as dashes and plus signs. As Leonard Todd states in Carolina Clay, with so few words surviving from the gifted, unusual man almost alone in his role of slave witness, it's important for us to get them right. Dave created his art in spite of a society that not only discouraged his brilliance, but threatened him with death for expressing it. We know Dave mainly because of what he wrote on his pottery. For long periods of time, Dave did not write on the sides of his pots, perhaps because he knew it was not safe. He would sometimes just sign his name. He only had a first name because slaves were not allowed to have family names, like Hill or Collier. Times might put the date on once in a while, would include a poem. Perhaps he wrote his poems for a specific person, or maybe for anyone who could just read. Here's one poem. Put every bit all between surely this jar we hold 14. That was written in July 12, 1834. This poem was written on one of the earliest pots that we know for certain Dave made. It tells us that the pot can hold 14 gallons. Dave was one of only 2 known potters at the time who successfully made pots that were larger than 20 gallons, sometimes as large as 40 gallons. To To do this, he had to wrestle more than 60 pounds of clay on his turning wheel, a feat that required great skill and strength. Dave belongs to Mr. Miles, where the oven bakes and the pot boils, July 31st, 1840. So we're going to end there. If you ever like to get a hold of this book, you can find it at your local library. And for those of you who might want a nice Christmas or birthday present, you can find it on Amazon as well. So we're going to take a couple of more minutes and watch our two students as they continue to throw their pieces of artwork.
So while Mr. Newland was reading, Adriana and Christian put a hole in the center of their pots, but not so deep that water will fall out, because we want this to hold things, just like Dave's work. Now imagine that. Dave could throw 60 pounds of clay. Adriana and Christian are working with 3 pounds of clay. Wow, imagine that piece of clay 20 times bigger. Holy moly. And Dave's pottery, some of his biggest, could hold 40 gallons. Imagine that. 40 jugs of milk or 40 jugs of water inside one pot. I don't think I could do that. So after our student artists have put the holes in, now, like Dave was talking about, they're putting pressure on the inside and pressure on the outside. And what that does is it squeezes the clay and pushes it up. They're skillfully controlling the speed with a foot pedal and spinning their clay as it grows and grows. Now, once they get their height to where they want it, they're going to start doing some shaping. You can see the lines that Christian's fingers have made as he throws. You can see how smooth Adriana is keeping her pot using that sponge on the outside. Throwing a pot takes every muscle in your body. You have to keep your belly tight. You have to keep your arms strong. You have to keep your hands steady. You can see how hard Christian is working as his body is holding very steady against the clay. Beautiful shapes, artists.